Hello, and welcome to the video today. I hope you are all doing great, and let's get right into it as we cover today's topic of Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. Curtis Michael Hennig, better known by the ring as Mr. Perfect, was an American professional wrestler who was born on March 28, 1958, and died at the young age of 44 on February 10, 2003. Many contemporaries, pundits, and fans regard him as one of the best professional wrestlers of all time, and he appeared under his own name for promotions such as the American Wrestling Association, the World Wrestling Federation, World Championship Wrestling, and NWA Total Nonstop Action. Hennig was the son of wrestler Larry the Axe Hennig and the father of Curtis Axel. Hennig made his debut in 1980 and went on to win numerous belts in both Pacific Northwest Wrestling and the AWA that decade. He rose to prominence when he defeated Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA World Heavyweight Championship in 1987, and his 373-day reign was the seventh longest in history. Hennig later joined the WWF, where he feuded with Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship and won the WWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship twice, becoming the longest reigning title holder of the 1990s. In addition to winning several titles in WCW throughout the late 1990s, Hennig challenged for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship on pay-per-view. He also fronted the West Texas Rednecks, a stable and country music group that recorded the popular satirical song Rap is Crap. He won the WWC Universal Heavyweight Championship during his time with the organization in 2000. Hennig made a brief return to the WWF in 2002, finishing as one of the final three men at that year's Royal Rumble. Prior to his death on February 10, 2003, he headlined several TNA pay-per-view events and was in contention for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Wade Boggs, a former Major League Baseball player and personal friend, inducted Hennig into the WWE Hall of Fame after his death in 2007. Hulk Hogan once said, "Everybody would check their egos at the door when they came to a building where Curt Hennig was, because you couldn't outwork him, outshine him, or outperform him. He was the best of the best." If you agree with the statement made by Hogan, please subscribe and I will tally up at the end to see how many agree. Curt Hennig was born on March 28, 1958, as the son of professional wrestler Larry the Axe Hennig. Hennig was childhood buddies with wrestler Rick Rude. They attended Robbinsdale High School in his hometown of Robbinsdale, Minnesota, with Tom Zenk, Brady Boone, Nikita Koloff, John Nord, Road Warrior Hawk, and Barry Darsow, all of whom became professional wrestlers. Hennig, often known as Cool Curt, began his career in the AWA on January 30, 1980. Hennig began his WWF debut in 1981. His first victory came against Johnny Rodz. He established himself as a promising young talent, competing against the likes of Playboy, Buddy Rose, Greg Valentine, and Killer Khan. He eventually found himself in tag team battles with another young upstart, Eddie Gilbert, who was the son of a wrestling great, Tommy Gilbert. On April 27, 1982, Hennig and his father Larry won the NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team Championship by defeating Rip Oliver and Matt Bourne. He went on to win the titles with Buddy Rose and Scott McGhee in 1983. Between 1984 and 1988, he made occasional appearances for the organization. During this time, he worked for New Japan Pro Wrestling in several territories, including NWA St. Louis, Central States Wrestling, and the Continental Wrestling Association. Hennig rejoined the American Wrestling Association in 1983. He soon rose to become one of the promotion's top talents, capturing the AWA World Tag Team Championship with Scott Hall on January 18, 1986, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, by defeating Gorgeous, Jimmy Garvin, and Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal. Later, he began his solo career in the AWA, eventually defeating the great Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA World Heavyweight Championship at Superclash on May 2, 1987, with the assistance of Larry Zabrisco and becoming a villain in the process. Hennig, along with his father Larry the Axe, would have a lengthy battle with Greg Gagne and his father, Vern Gagne. He has been associated with Medusa Miceli, the AWA World Women's Champion, since December 27, 1987. Hennig and Medusa joined the Diamond Exchange, a stable led by Diamond Dallas Page and comprising Bad Company and Colonel De Beers. HENNIG would hold the AWA World Heavyweight Championship for about 53 weeks until losing it to Jerry Lawler on May 9, 1988. HENNIG, like many other AWA stars at the time, including Hulk Hogan, Rick Martel, and the Rockers, departed the AWA for the WWF. HENNIG returned to the WWF in the middle of 1988. HENNIG returned to the ring on the September 11th episode of All-American Wrestling, defeating Enhancement star Ron Ravishad. On the October 1st episode of Superstars, vignettes began airing on WWF television, during which he was repackaged with a new character of an arrogant braggart villain who claimed to be able to complete difficult tasks perfectly, earning the nickname Mr. Perfect, which would become his ring name in 1989, and the use of his real name would be phased out. Did he deserve the title of Mr. Perfect? Hit the subscribe button if you believe he did. He showed himself as exceptional in athletics and everything else he did. These videos showed him hitting half-court, three-point, and no-look basketball shots, bowling a 300, racing the table in billiards, tossing and catching his own Hail Mary football pass, sinking a long golf putt, hitting home runs, and making bullseyes in darts. In these vignettes, HENNIG was joined by stars from other major league sports, including Wade Boggs from baseball, Steve Jordan from football, Felton Spencer from basketball, and Mike Modano from the National Hockey League. HENNIG made his debut as Mr. Perfect on the October 4th broadcast of Primetime Wrestling, defeating Jim Brunzell. His first major pay-per-view match was at Survivor Series 1988, where he competed in a 5-on-5 elimination tag team match with co-captain Andre the Giant, Rick Rude, Dino Bravo, also co-captain, and Harley Race against co-captain Jim Duggan's team of Jake Roberts, also co-captain, Ken Patera, Tito Santana, and Scott Casey. Perfect survived the match with Bravo. The next year, he competed in SummerSlam and defeated the Red Rooster in a squash match. He remained undefeated on television for nearly a year, defeating mid-card wrestlers such as Brian Blair, Ronnie Garvin, Coco Beware, the Blue Blazer, the Red Rooster, Jimmy Snuka, Tito Santana, and Bret Hart in 1989. On the October 7th episode of Superstars, Perfect began working with the Genius, an arrogant, poetry-reciting academic from the Brother Love show, and began a feud with Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. Their feud escalated up after Genius defeated Hogan by count-out with HENNIG's assistance in the November 25th Saturday Night Main Event, and the duo stole and destroyed Hogan's title belt backstage. Perfect and Hogan wrestled on live events, where he lost to Hogan, but they did not compete on television until January 15, 1990, when HENNIG received his first opportunity for the WWF Championship against Hogan at Madison Square Garden. This was his first televised match against Hogan, and he won by disqualification but not the title. At the Royal Rumble, Perfect did a run-in attack to Brutus Beefcake, sparking an animosity between the two. Later that night, Perfect competed in the Royal Rumble event as the number 30 entrant. He eliminated Rick Rude before advancing to the final two, when he was ousted by Hogan. Perfect's undefeated streak came to an end when he lost to the Ultimate Warrior at Madison Square Garden. His first loss in singles combat on national television came against Brutus Beefcake at WrestleMania 6. Hogan evened the score with Perfect in a bout on April 28th Saturday night's main event, where Hogan pinned Perfect for the first time on television. Perfect competed in a tournament for the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship in May 1990, after former champion Ultimate Warrior vacated the title after winning the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 6. HENNIG was scheduled to win the tournament for the vacant championship by defeating Jimmy Snuka in the quarterfinals on the May 5th episode of Superstars and two-time Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion Tito Santana in the finals on the May 19th show. After winning the title, Perfect hired Bobby Heenan as his Perfect manager and successfully defended the title against Santana on July 28th Saturday Night Main Event. HENNIG was supposed to defend the title against Brutus Beefcake at SummerSlam following his loss to Beefcake at WrestleMania, but Beefcake was injured, so the Texas Tornado replaced Beefcake and challenged HENNIG to a title match for SummerSlam on August 11's episode of Superstars, which Perfect accepted on the following week's episode. Perfect lost the championship against Texas Tornado at SummerSlam. HENNIG was picked to head Demolition as the Perfect Team against the Warriors, Ultimate Warrior, Texas Tornado, and Legion of Doom. In a 4-on-4 elimination tag team match at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, but his team lost. He unsuccessfully challenged Texas Tornado for the Intercontinental Championship in a rematch on the November 24th MSG Network special, but reclaimed the championship by defeating Texas Tornado on the December 15th episode of Superstars with the assistance of Ted DiBiase. Perfect defended the championship against Texas Tornado in a rematch on Superstars on February 2, 1991, and retained the title by losing via countout. Perfect's next title defense was against Big Boss Man at WrestleMania 7, where he retained the title by losing via disqualification after the challenger was attacked by Haku and the Barbarian. The next month, Perfect won a Battle Royal on April 27 Saturday Night's main event by eliminating Greg Valentine, setting up a title match between the two on the May 14th episode of Primetime Wrestling, which Perfect retained via disqualification. On a June 15th episode of Superstars, Bobby Heenan announced his retirement as manager and introduced the coach as Hennig's new manager. Hennig started a feud with British Bulldog, but he sustained a back injury in late June. Therefore, the rivalry ended. On the July 13th episode of Superstars, Bret Hart was named as his next challenger, and Hennig was held out of all house shows, with Typhoon taking his place. On television, he wrestled a few preliminary opponents, but to avoid straining his back with the Perfect Plex, he used the gimmick of throwing his opponents out of the ring in disgust and defeating them via countout. Perfect lost the title to Hart at SummerSlam, and a damaged tailbone and bulging discs forced him to retire from wrestling. Hennig spent the next year rehabilitating from his injuries. He appeared on the November 23rd episode of Superstars as Ric Flair's executive consultant. Perfect joined Superstars the following week as a color commentator for the next year, providing a good diabolical foil to Vince McMahon's play-by-play. During this time, Perfect helped Flair win matches and led him to 2 World Heavyweight Championship reigns in 1992. By the autumn of 1992, Perfect and Flair were feuding with Randy Savage, which culminated in a tag team battle at Survivor Series between Flair and Razor Ramon against Savage and Ultimate Warrior. However, Warrior was released from the WWF many weeks before the event. On the November 16th episode of Primetime Wrestling, Savage requested Perfect to be his partner. After initially rejecting Savage's offer, Perfect was persuaded by Savage's cajoling and Bobby Heenan's degrading comments and commanding Perfect to follow orders, which led to Perfect becoming a fan favorite for the first time in WWF by dumping water on Heenan and accepting Savage's offer to return to the ring and become his partner at Survivor Series, much to the delight of the Primetime Wrestling cast of Hillbilly Jim, Jim Duggan, and Vince McMahon. Hennig returned to the ring at Survivor Series, where he and Savage won the bout. Perfect started a high-profile rivalry with Flair. He returned to singles competition on the January 2, 1993 episode of Superstars, defeating the Berserker. Hennig competed in the 1993 Royal Rumble match, which determined the number 1 contender for the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 9. He defeated Flair, Skinner, and Jerry Lawler before being eliminated by Ted DiBiase, Koko B. Ware, and Lawler. Hennig defeated Flair the next night on Monday Night Raw in a match where the loser was forced to leave the WWF. As a result, Flair left the WWF. He later feuded with the debuting Lex Luger, who berated Perfect throughout his promotional appearances. Luger won their match at WrestleMania 9, despite Perfect's feet being plainly between the ropes. Perfect then chased Luger backstage, where he was attacked from behind by Luger's buddy Shawn Michaels. As a result, Perfect developed a rivalry with Michaels. During this period, Hennig defeated Doink the Clown to qualify for the first King of the Ring competition to be broadcast on television. Perfect defeated Mr. Hughes in the quarterfinals of King of the Ring before losing to Bret Hart in the semifinals. Perfect faced Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam, but lost by countout due to interference from Michaels' new bodyguard Diesel. Hennig's last televised WWF match occurred on the November 7th episode of Wrestling Challenge, where he defeated Iron Mike Sharpe. He was supposed to be on Razor Ramon's team at Survivor Series, but Randy Savage took his position in the event. Perfect made a surprising comeback to the WWF on March 20, 1994, as the special guest referee for Lex Luger's WWF Championship bout against Yokozuna. Perfect disqualified Luger after he manhandled Perfect, who was tending to Yokozuna's injured managers Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji, rather than counting the pinfall and turned heel again. Perfect was about to begin another feud with Luger, and he explained that he screwed Luger because of Luger's unlawful victory over Perfect at WrestleMania 9 the previous year. However, plans were cancelled when Hennig's back troubles flared up again. He quit the WWF in March 1994. Hennig took a year out to recover from a back injury before rejoining the WWF as a color commentator for the Survivor Series pay-per-view in 1995. The following weekend, Jerry Lawler introduced Perfect as his replacement on Superstars, marking his second run as a color commentator alongside Vince McMahon, this time with Jim Ross as an analyst. Later in 1996, McMahon left, and Ross took over as play-by-play announcer. Perfect also provided color commentary for the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and In Your House 10 Mind Games pay-per-view. Perfect also served as a special guest referee for Shawn Michaels' WWF Championship bout against British Bulldog at June's King of the Ring pay-per-view. In mid-1996, Hennig was placed in an angle with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and during the feud Perfect supported Mark Marrow in capturing the Intercontinental Championship from Farouk and retaining it against Gold Dust at In Your House 11 Buried Alive. Perfect was supposed to make his wrestling comeback against Helmsley the next night on Raw, but he was attacked backstage moments before their match. It appeared like Helmsley's onslaught had left Perfect hurt and unable to compete. This was all a plot to get Marrow to defend his championship against Helmsley. Helmsley defeated Marrow and won the title with the assistance from Perfect. Perfect began to serve as Helmsley's mentor, accompanying him to the ring. Perfect quit the WWF soon before Survivor Series, making his final broadcast appearance on the November 5th episode of Raw. Hennig signed with WCW in mid-1997. The WWF patented his Mr. Perfect ring identity, so he reverted to wrestling under his real name. He made his WCW debut as a crowd favorite on the June 30th broadcast of Monday Nitro during a melee that broke out following the main event. His debut match with the organization was at July's Bash at the Beach pay-per-view, where he joined Diamond Dallas Page's mystery tag team against NWO members Randy Savage and Scott Hall. Hennig ended up turning on Page, costing them the match. As a result, Hennig developed a feud with Page and defeated him at Road Wild. Hennig continued to use the Fisherman Suplex as his finisher, dubbing it the Hennigplex. Shortly after his debut, he became a top favorite of both the Four Horsemen and the NWO, with both factions expressing interest in joining him. He eventually joined the Four Horsemen, taking the place of the retiring Arn Anderson. Hennig responded to Anderson's invitation, saying it would be a privilege. Anderson's request that Hennig take his spot inspired the NWO's parody of the Horsemen the following week, which resulted in the War Games bout. At Fall Brawl, Hennig was allegedly jumped backstage by the NWO prior to the War Games match and arrived at ringside mid-fight with his arm in a sling. The entire thing turned out to be a setup, as Hennig betrayed the Horsemen and joined the NWO, handcuffing the other Horsemen to the cage and then slamming the steel cage door into Ric Flair's head, claiming he had destroyed the Horsemen, and, as a further slap to Flair, claiming to be the wrestler that made Minnesota famous, thus becoming a villain. The following night, on Nitro, Hennig defeated Horseman Steve McMichael to win the United States Heavyweight Championship. Hennig retained the championship for the next 3 months, defending it against Flair in a regular wrestling contest at Halloween Havoc and a no disqualification match at World War III, before losing it to Diamond Dallas Page at Starrcade. In the autumn of 1997, Hennig joined the NWO alongside his boyhood closest friend Rick Rude. In 1998, Hennig and Rude were pitted against Bret Hart and his family, British Bulldog, and Jim Neidhart, in a series of matches that lasted the first half of 1998. Hennig lost to Hart at Uncensored but beat Bulldog at Spring Stampede. In mid-1998, he was sidelined with a knee injury. During this time, the NWO split into two factions, the NWO Wolfpack and the NWO Hollywood. Hennig and Rude joined Kevin Nash's fan-favorite Wolfpack squad. However, the two villains did not fit in with the fan-favorite Wolfpack side, especially when Rude continued to use the microphone to order the crowd to shut up. Hennig was supposed to wrestle Goldberg for the U.S. Heavyweight Championship at June's The Great American Bash pay-per-view, but he was unable to compete due to injury, so he asked Konnan to replace him. Konnan lost the match, and Hennig and Rude attacked him, leaving the Wolfpack to join NWO Hollywood. The next month, Goldberg won the World Heavyweight Championship, and Hennig, despite his injury, competed for the belt in a losing attempt at Bash at the Beach. In the fall of 1998, Hennig resumed battling with Horseman Dean Malenko over his betrayal of the Four Horsemen the previous year, which culminated in a bout between the two at September's Fall Brawl pay-per-view, which Hennig lost. Following the loss, Hennig was removed from television to heal from his knee ailment. He returned to WCW for the Starrcade event in December, assisting Eric Bischoff in defeating Ric Flair. Hennig teamed up with Barry Windham to face Flair and his son David in a tag team bout at Sold Out in 1999, which they lost. In 1999, both NWO groups were formed, and Hennig was assigned to the NWO B team, which was made up of NWO mid-card wrestlers. However, he was thrown out of the organization after speaking out against the leaders on Nitro's January 25th show. Hennig established a tag team with Barry Windham and began his war with the Four Horsemen. Hennig and Windham were entered into a tournament for the vacant World Tag Team Championship, which they won by defeating Horseman Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko at Super Brawl 9. Hennig and Windham retained the tag belts for a month before losing to Benoit and Malenko in a lumberjack match the following month at Uncensored, when Arn Anderson hit Hennig with a tire iron. Hennig faced Hollywood Hogan in the main event of the March 18th episode of Thunder, but lost after Horace stopped Hogan from receiving a Hennigplex. In May, Hennig founded the West Texas Rednecks with Windham, Barry's brother Kendall Windham, and Bobby Duncombe Jr. The group members were billed as Southern country performers. They began warring with rapper Master P's No Limit Soldiers and released the infamous country song Rap is Crap. During the rivalry, Hennig and Duncombe were defeated by Konnan and Rey Mysterio Jr. of the No Limit Soldiers in a tag team match at the Great American Bash on June 13th. Less than a month later, on July 11th, the Rednecks lost to the Soldiers in another elimination tag team match at Bash at the Beach. Rednecks were meant to be villains, but Southern WCW fans cheered them instead of the Soldiers, therefore the angle was shelved. The Rednecks' final pay-per-view appearance was at Road Wild on August 14th, when Hennig, Barry, and Duncombe were defeated by the Revolution in a six-man tag team match. After the Rednecks disbanded, Hennig started a storyline in which he declared that he was obeying orders from the powers that be, and that if he lost any bout by pinfall, he would retire. He competed in a tournament to become the new World Heavyweight Champion, defeating Disco Inferno in the first round before losing to Jeff Jarrett in the second round. He was forced to retire after losing his retirement match to Buff Bagwell at Mayhem. He was resurrected by the powers that be a month later, and teamed up with Creative Control to defeat Harlem Heat and Midnight at Starrcade. He stayed on WCW television, making intermittent appearances for the company. He began a battle with Shawn Stasiak in the spring of 2000, after Stasiak referred to himself as the Perfect One, a copycat of Hennig's Mr. Perfect character, and even used entrance music made to sound like Mr. Perfect's theme song. Hennig lost to Stasiak at Slamboree. Hennig's last televised bout in WCW was against Chris Harris on the May 20th broadcast of Worldwide, which he won. Hennig left WCW when his contract expired in the summer of 2000. After leaving World Championship Wrestling, Hennig joined the Australian iGeneration Superstars of Wrestling promotion in the summer of 2000, where he won the iGeneration World Heavyweight Championship twice. Following his stints in Australia, he joined the World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico, where he briefly defeated Carly Colon for the WWC Universal Heavyweight Championship. He performed with the WWC until January 2001. In January 2001, Hennig appeared in Japan for All Japan Pro Wrestling's Kings Road New Century 2001 event, where he competed in a six-man tag team bout in the Tokyo Dome. In mid-2001, Hennig made a few appearances for Harley Race's World League Wrestling organization. He then performed infrequently on the independent circuit until November 2001, when he joined the newly founded Excitement Wrestling Federation. He battled for the XWF for the rest of the year, taking on opponents such as Buff Bagwell and Vampiro. In December 2001, he made 2 more World Wrestling Council appearances. During the build-up to January's Royal Rumble, Hennig was named as one of the 30 participants who will return. Hennig, dubbed as Mr. Perfect, although his real name was widely known. Entered the Royal Rumble at number 25 and advanced to the final 3 before being eliminated by eventual champion Triple H. Perfect had a tremendous performance at the Rumble, hitting the perfect plex on Kurt Angle and holding his own against the WWF's best at the moment. Hennig's performance, combined with the positive reaction of the Atlanta fans, landed him a full-time deal with the WWF. He would go on to have short feuds with Rob Van Dam and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Following that, he formed a tag team with Shawn Stasiak at house shows in March and April, as well as a broadcast tag team with Big Boss Man. Hennig was picked to Raw in the WWF's inaugural draft. Hennig's final televised WWE match came on the May 12th edition of Heat, taped May 6th, where he was beaten by Matt Hardy. He also competed in a dark bout at the Insurrection on May 4th, 2002, defeating Goldust. Hennig was released from the organization on May 7, 2002, after a physical altercation with Brock Lesnar on the return aircraft from the pay-per-view. Among other drunken episodes, the fight occurred on the infamous plane ride from hell. According to Rob Van Dam and Tommy Dreamer on the dark side of the ring, Hennig pranked Lesnar by smearing shaving cream on his head, causing a scuffle and nearly opening the emergency exit door. Following his release from WWE, he worked for NWA Total Nonstop Action. In TNA, he wrestled 3 times for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, 2 against Ron Killings and 1 against Jeff Jarrett, but did not win the championship. He also competed for the NWA World Tag Team Championship against Disciples of the New Church, but did not win. On January 8, 2003, Hennig won his final match, defeating David Flair in an axe handle on a pole match. In his personal life, Hennig married Leon Ice Leonard. They had 4 children named Joseph, Amy, Kate, and Hank. Joe and Amy are pro wrestlers. In addition to his wife and 4 children, Hennig is survived by his parents, Larry and Irene, 2 brothers, Randy and Jesse, and 2 sisters, Sandra and Susan. Sadly, on February 10, 2003, Hennig was discovered dead in a Florida hotel room at the age of 44, 6 weeks shy of his 45th birthday. The Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's Office determined that acute cocaine intoxication was the cause of his death. His father stated that the use of steroids and drugs contributed to his death. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope you found the video informative. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel for more content. I am looking to reach 500 by the end of June, so your help would be appreciated.